This lesson is on organizing body paragraphs. We're going to continue working on our writing skills. In the last lesson, we looked at how to correctly write introduction paragraphs, and this is moving on to the next step of body paragraphs. But first, let's do a quick review of introduction paragraph structure. We talked about it in the last lesson, how there are four main parts to an introduction paragraph. The first part is your hook, and that is what gets your reader's attention. It should be the first sentence of your introduction paragraph, and we talked about the different ways that you could grab your reader's attention. Next is the bridge, which connects the theme that you suggest in the hook with the actual topic that you're wanting to discuss. In this case, we were discussing short stories, themes in short stories, and so the bridge is that connecting sentence or connecting phrase that helps us move to the next part. Next is our summary, which is important because you do not ever need to assume that whoever is reading your essay has any idea of what you're talking about. You always need to provide some context. A short summary of your topic is very helpful for readers to understand what it is you're writing about. And then the last part is maybe the most important part of your introduction paragraph, and that is your thesis statement. Your thesis statement is your purpose of writing, and it helps establish your main ideas for the rest of your paragraph. So let's take a look at a basic essay outline. This is an outline that I have used for several years with my students, and if you follow this basic outline, it makes writing essays so much easier because you can start with this. Provides a good skeleton for you to create your essay, and then all you have to do is add to this, and it just makes it really simple if you follow this outline as a beginner for your essay. So let's look at this intro paragraph like we just discussed. And then you come your body paragraphs 1, 2, and 3. And the last thing is your conclusion, which we will talk about in a different lesson. So let's talk about our body paragraphs and what those should look like. We discussed in the introduction how your thesis oftentimes will introduce your main ideas for your essay. And so in your body paragraphs, you're wanting to break down and discuss each of those main ideas. And so a body paragraph should start off with the main idea. That is your main part of your body paragraph. That's the main thing that you're writing about in your body paragraph. And then after that, you want to follow up with some text evidence. Usually that's in the form of a quote. It can be paraphrased, but we start off just talking about quotes and how to use quotes correctly. And then lastly, you want to use commentary. Every time you use some text evidence, you want to use some commentary to back that up. And we'll discuss here in just a minute what exactly commentary means. But this is a great way to start off your body paragraphs, because you follow this, you can always add more to it, but this kind of gets you started, helps you get going with it. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about main ideas and why they're important. Each main idea needs its own paragraph. Your main idea is what connects all your sentences within that paragraph together. This is the focal point. It should be your very first sentence of any new paragraph should include your main idea. And so all of your other sentences after that should somehow connect back to that main idea, whether you're providing text evidence or whether you're providing commentary. All of it needs to be tied together to that one main idea. If you start on another main idea, it needs its own paragraph. So let's talk about using text evidence, using quotes. I think some of you have an idea about how to use quotes, or you've used quotes before. You know about how to use quotation marks. But we want to make sure that we don't use standalone quotes. And what I mean by that is where you have one sentence that is just a quote. You put that into your body paragraph, and it kind of leaves the reader confused. They don't know why that you have put that there. And so what you have to do is you have to transition that quote into a sentence. Any quote should be included within a sentence because it provides context for the reader. Context is very important. Again, don't ever assume that your readers know what you're talking about. They may not have read the same story as you. They may not know what text you're referring to. So it's always good to somehow transition that quote. So here I've given you some examples. April was so wildly confused that she actually, quote, hated Caroline because it was all her fault. So in this, we actually just continue a sentence that we had started while using and ending the sentence with a quote, some text evidence. And then probably the more traditional classic way is to say, according to the author, reading and writing are two skills every person will need in the workplace. Where you set that up with an introductory phrase, that is a great way to transition those quotes into a sentence. All right, so let's talk about commentary. I mentioned earlier that every time you use a quote, every time you use text evidence, you also need to provide some commentary. So what is commentary? Commentary is giving your opinion as if it is a fact. We all know this is your essay. We all know it is your opinion. We want to be able to see what you think about the text, what you think about the main ideas, and how they all tie together. However, we don't need you to use I think, I believe, or any type of first person because as developing writers, you got to get away from using first person. We want to know your opinion, but you have to stick to third person point of view. We don't want to use first person because that's more informal. It's more formal to use third person point of view. So here's an example. April is so wildly confused that she actually hated Caroline because it was all her fault. While April is clearly the smartest of the friends, she often acts on her emotion. So this is the same quote that we used on the slide before, same text evidence, and the follow-up sentence to that gives an explanation on what I think. This is what I think. I think that April is the smartest, and I think she acts on her emotions. But I didn't have to say I think. I just say it. It's my essay, I can just say it. While April is clearly the smartest of the friends, and she often acts on her emotion. Never, I can't stress this enough, never use first person point of view and unless your teacher says it's okay because you're writing a personal narrative. We don't want to use first person point of view for an informative essay, and that's what we are working on writing is informative essays, third person point of view only. All right, this next part is something that you can use, but you don't necessarily have to use. It's called a transition sentence. At the end of your body paragraph, you may want to provide a sentence or a phrase that will help you go on to the next paragraph, help you make that transition where it's kind of like you're changing the ideas. You do not have to use this. It's only really used in some situations. Compare contrast essays I've found seem to be the best type of essays to use a transition sentence. But you're showing that you're switching ideas. You're going from one main idea to the next main idea. So I've listed some common phrases that you can use with transition sentence. In contrast, however, in spite of, on the other hand. These are common phrases that are used to show that there's a new idea or another idea that is different from the main idea that you just had. So again, you don't have to use this for just a regular informative essay, but when we write compare contrast essays later on, you may want to start using some of these phrases. All right, so let's talk about, I mentioned that this is just a way to get started on your essay, that you want. This is a good skeleton, a good body to start with. But what if you need more? What if your teacher says, well, it's got to be 5 pages long, or what if you have to have some type of word count? Well, what you do is you just add on to it. If you have good quotes, you feel like you have good text evidence, add more commentary. Maybe you have more opinions to add to a single quote. But, however, let's think about this. Every time you use a quote, you need to add more commentary. You can put as much commentary as you want on one quote, but if you use a quote, you need to add some commentary to go with it. You don't want your essay to just be quote after quote after quote after quote. If you use a quote, you need to provide commentary. You need to somehow give your input, your point of view when using a quote. And then the last thing I say to help you is if 3 body paragraphs isn't enough, if you need even more length, find some more main ideas. If you add another main idea, you can add more body paragraphs. Each main idea needs its own paragraph. So in order to get more paragraphs, add more main ideas.